Welcome back to Proper Madness. I'm happy to have you back if you're a returning listener. If you're a new listener, my name is Sabby, and I have a very unique perspective on mental health. I believe wholeheartedly that we can turn anything that we have been through and alchemize it into bettering ourselves mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I also get to have the wonderful chance to speak to some amazing individuals, all very unique in their own stories from all around the world. They get to tell their lives, their stories, their hardships, and how they've overcome it. It helps you feel less alone, to know and understand that the way out is always through the eye of the storm, no matter how much we like to avoid it. Grab a cup of tea. If you're not a tea drinker, grab your coffee, and let's sit down and tune into ourselves so that we can learn to connect to other people. We never know the weight of our words and how they might help someone. Hi, hello.
Hi.
Okay, so, guys, as I just said, welcome back to Proper Madness. Today's new. I have never had a guest in my this is a studio, we're gonna call it a studio. I've never had a guest in person here, so it's kind of nice to finally have someone here with me. This is Tia, and I'll let her kind of introduce herself and tell you more about what she's about and who she is. So yeah.
Hi, I'm excited to be here. This is a very cute studio, and I'm a marketing, sex, and confidence coach. I'm a speaker, I have a podcast, and I have a clothing line for festival clothing and the best ugly Christmas sweaters you can buy.
Oh my god, I didn't know that actually. I'm learning new things about her as we speak. I had no idea that you had like all of that too. Just
Yeah, it's my number one income stream,
oh cool.
and I've had it for a long time. It started as a little baby side hobby and then kind of grew over the years. I got laid off and started putting more effort towards it. And if you Google Megan Trainor's Christmas album, that's my ugly Christmas
Oh my
sweater
god.
on her album, and her lingerie. I custom made it for her, and it's one of my top sellers now.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I know I'm breaking the rules after this. As we know, I like to specialize in like picking apart people's lives and understanding more like the why behind it. You did a TED Talk
hmm
on sexuality and shame, I believe, sort of. I think that was the bulk of it, or what I picked up from it. I kind of would love to know like a background of your story and what like some of the things that you've been through and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's break out of shame, own your confidence. You can go look it up. I'll give you the link.
Yeah.
It'll pop up, Tia Lynn. And it brings this up in the TED Talk, but kind of breaking it down. There was a point where I got more into spirituality. I was challenging my Christian beliefs, just like what was
Mm.
put down on me, kind of like, oh, I've been to 7 countries now, kind of wanted to explore. And I heard of shadow work and I started doing it.
Mm.
And the biggest thing was triggers, like when you get a really intense emotion, or maybe you're getting angry about somebody, they're kind of triggering you. They're
Mm.
bringing up like this like emotion that you're getting mad or sad or frustrated with. And so I was getting that. Actually, I didn't bring this up in the TED Talk, but with my coworker
Yeah.
who was my friend. Like we were like partners in crime, and like I was judging her on her sexuality and her partners and how many partners she was having, and it was like kind of bugging me. And so I started looking up shadow work and trying to understand why I was judging her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, we're taught that it's wrong, bad to have multiple partners. She wasn't hurting anybody. She wasn't hurting herself. She was doing it for her.
Yeah.
It was just like I was placing the judgment that was placed on me to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized a part of me did want to feel free and feel not so trapped in a box. And maybe not the same way as it was for her, but in my own way.
Yeah. Wow, I like that. So what when you wanted to get out of that box, what did that look like for you? Like how did that happen? Because
Yeah.
I feel like that can be like there can be one pivotal moment where that happens, but
Mhm.
for some people it's several.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So this was a long time ago. This is like a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think back. I think that I was making a lot of rules around my sexuality that were passed down. And so what that looked for me was to feel into my body and myself, whether or not I wanted it for me.
Oh. And not a story that someone else told you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so if maybe I did go out, a decade ago, and I met a hot guy and like I just wanted to have fun with him, and I didn't have like I'm trying to prove myself, I'm trying to give something. It's more like, oh, this would be fun for me right now and this would be safe, instead of being like, oh no, that's bad, I need this, or that's shunned, or I'm a bad person, or I'm a hoe, or a skink, or whatever. I was like, no, I want this for me. It's okay.
Yeah. So honoring your own needs,
Yeah.
basically, and listening to what you want as
Yeah.
opposed to what the world or your life told you wanted.
Yeah. And so it helped me feel more safe and happy and okay to do things that I wanted to do. And some of them actually did turn into relationships, some of them didn't. And it was just fun. And I enjoyed it and I didn't feel
Yeah.
used or depleted. It was for me.
I think that's huge because so when I was in college, for me, the way that like I explored my sexuality was
Mm-hmm.
very much from a place of I'm lacking, so let
Yep.
me go get what I'm lacking from people or places or situations that weren't necessarily the best for me. But
Yep.
I didn't actually want them. If I
Yep.
thought deep down inside, I was like, nah, everyone else around me's doing this, and like I kind of want to go explore this, so why don't I? But then looking back, all those experiences, yeah, they were fun, they were great, but at the same time I was like, but who was I doing it for?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, what, why was I exploring? Was I doing it because I wanted to be cool and to fit in, or is it because I actually wanted it?
Mm-hmm.
And so like that shame around exploring pleasure and what you actually want, what actually excites you, and then I have a story where like I did get to do that.
Yeah.
And I was really excited to do something like that. And then afterwards I felt shame.
Mm-hmm.
And then I shut myself off of it. It's just like these extremes of openness and being closed. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shame is the lowest vibration.
Mm.
It is the lowest on the vibrational scale.
Yeah.
So it's where we're shaming ourselves, guilt, shame, guilt. And so that's how we're controlled, is when we're
Yeah.
feeling the worst. And that keeps us in this like shame circle. It's
Mm.
like we project it onto others and we project it onto ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and then I've seen that too, where there's a lot of people where you start telling them about your dating life, or even if I tell people about my past, I'm sure you've gone through this, where automatically there's this energy of judgment and shame coming from another person, and you're going,
Mm-hmm.
oh, because I've had a colorful life. I feel like a lot of people don't want to color outside the lines because they're taught not to.
Yep.
Right, with everything, with sexuality, with with sexuality, with their lives, with experiencing pleasure, which we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Which I really want to get your take on that. So Tia, the original reason why I was so pulled towards her is she's someone who experiences pleasure and sensuality in a way that most people, aren't aware of even tapping into. So, with your life and some of the things that you've been through, how did you start tapping into sensuality and pleasure? I know you said like starting to explore more experiences and relationships just for you, right? And not for other people, but like what else did that look like?
Okay, tapping into pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing is that I went a few years thinking that I couldn't orgasm. Yeah, like 2 or 3 or something like that.
How?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm ADHD, so I
Yeah.
think that was a big part. So if you relate to this, like this is the thing. It's
Yeah.
like my brain would be there and there and there and there, and like it was fun and I felt pleasure and it was good, but I don't think I tapped into my body.
Mm.
Like where I was and pleasure, it was like a goal that I didn't feel was achievable.
Yeah.
I thought there was something wrong with me. I enjoyed sex, so it wasn't a complaint. I was like, it's
Mm.
fine. Like, I enjoy it. I like sex.
Yeah.
But over the years, I realized I really needed to tap into my body. I really needed to tap into the present moment. I need to let those thoughts kind of like drift away. It's like a practice and open up. And also, shame also held me back. Shame of it's taking too long, ladies. Shame of like judgment of my body. Shame of, is this okay? Like, God's watching me. Like, I grew up very Christian. So there was a lot of shame that held me back. And then not really understanding what an orgasm was, even.
Do you think there's a lot of, I mean, I'm sure there is, there's like a lot of stigma around sexuality and, porn and like how that's supposed to be given, right? Because when I think about sensuality and pleasure and love in certain ways, I think about it, you're just very present in your body, as opposed to being outside of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I was hearing when you were saying that is before you had thought that an orgasm was something outside
Yep.
and not internal. And
It was like given to me.
yeah. It's like shall be thrust upon.
There you go.
Go. But that's what I think of, and like anytime I tap into like my sensuality, I'm very, very present. Like insanely present. I've even like I think what much of my audience knows now, I started doing pole, but for the reasons of I just very naturally have a lot of sensual energy that just radiates.
Yeah.
And it can get me into some trouble
Yeah.
that I do not go looking for or asking for, but it happens and there's nothing I can do and I'm like, "Oh, okay, sorry, goodbye." But
Yeah.
but when that does happen, it's because I'm very present in my body. And I think if you've been through a lot of things in your life, right, with any relationship or any situation, it's going to be hard to be present in your body and really truly experiencing pleasure. So when you think about like squirting and orgasming, that's because you're insanely present and you are willing to feel everything.
Yep.
Because how many times do you think, I'm sure you've heard of this, people use sex as just as like an escapism,
Yeah.
right? And porn and all that because they don't want to be inside their body.
Yep. That's exactly what it
Yeah.
was. And also, I wasn't fully connecting to the other person. That was a hard one, a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Is that I don't know when this started happening. I don't know if it was the whole time, you like think back. But I was doing shadow work and I was doing healing and sexual energy work and all this stuff. And I was realizing I was doing it for me, thinking of me, not really of the person, and just feeling what I felt. I wasn't connecting fully with them. And it was my last previous relationship where I like started eye gazing and started really connecting to them and wanting to give them pleasure. Like I don't know how long that lasted. Like I probably did that. I probably had like some block of time that I didn't probably damage or hurt or something, and then I had to reintroduce that to myself. It's like connecting to the other person and eye gazing, and I was like, how long have I been doing this? Like, how long have I just been detaching in my own body and not connecting with the other human as deeply?
I so relate to that
Uh,
because my recent, like the last
mhm.
person I dated, there was a moment where like, and he was, oh God, just a painfully honest human being. And bless him, like I'm glad he
Yeah.
was, but he said something one time to me. He was like, because, we were hooking up and he was like, I feel like you actually enjoyed that. I'm like, have I? I'm like,
What?
I was like, I feel like I emote quite well. And he goes, no. He's like, you actually seemed like you were here. Like you weren't somewhere else. You actually seemed a little bit more enthusiastic. He's like, you actually seemed like you wanted to be here. And it messed with my head for so
You're
long.
like, oh shit, how long have I acted like I didn't want to be here?
I was like, wait, what? I'm like, how many times have I like been intimate with someone or like had sex with them and been like, oh no, have I just not been present at all in any way, shape, or form? And for
Yeah.
me, it's because of that lack of connection.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of shadow work, I noticed that the partners that I would attract were very emotionally unavailable.
Oh.
Very, very emotionally unavailable. So and I wasn't connecting with them intimately or sexually in that
Yep.
way. So it
Yep.
all started making sense when he said that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh no.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a point, like if I were to guess, it was probably after my ex, like all the way in Utah when I lived with him. after some physical abuse. I think it might have started there.
Yeah.
Of like detachment. And then moving to California. And I mean, I dated a bunch of emotionally unavailable men, like slew. And I'm like,
oh my god, do they run rampant here?
yes. I mean, like, I would say they're everywhere,
yeah,
but we are different here because you have so much opportunity, so many people. Like in Utah, you had to have accountability. Like, you couldn't get away with being a fuckboy that treated women terribly for like a long extended amount of time because then everybody would know.
Oh.
And then women would share, like, you just kind of can't be as bad as you could be here because everybody would know. So there's a accountability.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
yes, there's fuckboys in Utah too, but you cannot get away with as much, I don't think. It's too small.
Because everyone knows everyone, so it's yeah, that makes sense. I had this long-standing. Well, we'll get back to that, but like I had this long-standing like theory of why I don't date men that were born and raised in California.
Yup.
Because for some and no, if you listen, if you're if you're a unicorn and you don't fit this bill, please let me know.
Yeah.
But I don't know why, but they tend to be a little bit more commitment phobic. They tend to definitely be a bit more fuckboy-y, and they don't know how to court women properly. I'm a little like more traditional romantic, where like I like to be courted and I like to be, treated as a woman, not like be sent WYD for like what do that's like
A gentleman.
a gentleman.
Courted.
Yes.
It's just living in California, it's privilege. Privilege, just, they don't even understand. Like, we do have a lot more sexy humans that are successful, and we are privileged. We live in beautiful California. There's a beach, there's lots of hot people, there's a lot of success. We have everything. Except sometimes the good quality in courting, but yeah, same. I tend to find that guys that are born and raised in California are very privileged and they don't understand how privileged they are.
Yeah, because it's a lack of, I think, adversity
Yeah.
and seeing culture and like hardship. I think in some like cultural hardship, like the emotional detachment part of it, I resonate with too, because I also went through some abuse physically, and that is also when I noticed a switch kind of flipped in my head.
Did you notice then or did you notice years later?
I noticed years
Yeah.
later. I didn't know it
Yeah.
at the time until the last person I dated, because of that comment. And so,
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay to share comments sometimes because sometimes you're like, what?
yeah.
It was a blind spot.
And do you think like a lot of people don't like highlighting other people's blind spots in that way?
Oh, it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I had a guy one time that, and I just remember this so vividly, hooking up with him and then him going to the bathroom and leaving me high and dry. And it was like, it was the first time. It was like a guy that, like, you could tell he was like, oh, that was great. And I was like, what about me? And also, it didn't last long. So I was like, what about me?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, you got off. And I was like, oh, really? Did I? When?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I've never had someone like complain before. People listening, it's not that people go out of their way to complain. In fact, it's the opposite. We don't complain. We just won't see you again.
Yeah, no. That, and I think that like the larger picture behind that though is just like a lot of people are just hooking up to hook up. Like for the sake of just feeling that experience instead of trying to connect with someone, right? Because sex, I think,
Yeah.
is such a big stigma, and generally, right? Even just talking about it on a podcast, like a lot of people are gonna listen to this and be like, "Oh my God, this is raunchy." It's not raunchy. It's actually it's real, and it's something that should be talked about a bit more, and people don't talk about enough. It's part of who you are. We're human beings. We do it, so you kind of have to get over it. But at the same time, using sex as a way, like people, I think there's two things. I want to get your take on this. People are like, sex isn't love. I do agree with that, but also sex is connection. It's energy. Like you gotta be. treat the people you are intimate with like people.
Yeah.
Because when you told me that, it's like he just treated you like you were a thing. Yeah.
Disposable. And then he also discounted my experience and then also was kind of calling me a liar.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, people don't complain. They don't go out of their way.
Messed up,
We
yeah.
don't go around. I mean, sometimes I do, being a fiery Aries, like telling people what they're doing
Yeah.
wrong. And I used to do it more and when I was younger.
Mhm.
But I realized today, like, people don't like that. Like, I'll ask if they want feedback. I'll be like, would you like feedback on this? And because I'm a coach, I don't want to go around trying to fix everybody's problems. Because you see them, and then you don't always know the whole situation, too, is what I've learned. You know, the older you get and the smarter and wiser you get, you realize you don't know anything.
Mm-mm.
Like, people who think they know everything know the least. It's
Yeah.
like the wiser and older I get, I'm like, there's so much I don't know. Yeah.
No, yeah, well, the loudest people, not like, but the people who talk the most, right, about nothing, they actually know nothing, right? It's the people who are giving you like real conversations like you and I have that actually know the most, but people don't want to listen to them because they're like, oh, they're gonna try to coach me or fix me. It's like, no, y- like we probably have the deepest insights because we've had more colorful lives, to be honest. Like we're not just sitting in our rooms 24/7 not doing anything. You know, we're out living our lives. So those are the people that I think I get that too though because I'm also an Aries. We have
Yep.
bonded over this. Um where I will give advice to people unsolicited, which is why I make my I don't know if you've seen them. I make my tea time with Sabby videos. They're very sassy.
Oh,
And I'm
fun. Yeah,
literally
I'd love to
having
see.
having a cup of tea just giving unsolicited advice.
To who?
Just the world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like a celebrity.
No, just
That would
people.
be funny.
Oh my god, that would be funny.
Like,
Like a
oh, so
reaction.
I've actually wanted to do reaction videos for dating. Like,
Oh
oh my
my
God, I've
god.
wanted to do like Love is Blind and like I've wanted to just do it so bad and I'm so scared because like I have a lot to say.
No, you should. We were talking about this too. You said, you know, some people, when they use this mic, they're using it. Which, by the way,
Yeah.
if you tilt this damn mic, you're doing it wrong. So
Yep.
don't do these things.
It's like this is for me, this is for her. You set this and yeah, you can cut that out if you want.
But no, we're gonna leave it in because now it's a public service announcement. But I feel like I think you should always give. There's a difference in giving your opinion and like just saying
Yeah.
whatever. But you should do that.
Yeah, I ask permission. So, would you like me to share with you a tip about the microphone? Like,
Yeah, that's better.
they're doing it wrong.
I definitely I do it now with my sister. She'd be like, "Please don't parent me." I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She's like,
Yeah.
"Sometimes I just want you to listen, and
Yep.
sometimes I want advice."
Yep.
And
That's
yeah,
key.
I'm too
So key.
direct.
I'm learning that so much in my relationship.
Yeah.
Like, listen. Listen, ask more questions. Like, that's one of the biggest tips for dating,
Mm,
for women especially, is listen.
yeah.
Without interruptions. Like you and I were like do 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 do, and sometimes I need to just listen to, and I know that, but that is the biggest thing, especially with the masculine energy, is to just be present and listen and let them finish their whole thought.
We're probably gonna have a lot of questions with why is sexuality and embracing my sexuality in any capacity, why is that important to lean more into?
Ooh, okay. Sexuality is life force energy.
Mm.
It is power. We create life through sex. And sexuality is a vibration as well.
Mm.
It's an energy, it's a creative life force. So I'm getting full body chills. And when you're in and tapped into your sexuality, you have creative energy, creating paintings, being more flow. You also like orgasms, and especially for women, it's energy, moving that through your body and tapping into that creative energy, that life force is powerful whether or not you're having sex with somebody.
Yeah.
There's been times as a very alpha female that is like go go go, do get the to-do list done. There was often times where I would push my pleasure to the side. Not just pleasure, but joy, pleasure, fun, workouts, all the things. I would push it to the side. I would work my ass off. I wouldn't allow myself to feel joy or pleasure. I didn't feel like I deserved it. I wasn't working enough. I wasn't doing enough. And there was a point of being in this dark hole, is what I used to, describe it as.
Yeah.
I wrote like blogs I never shared them, but I wrote content about being in this hole. And it was depressing and I didn't feel good and I wouldn't go work out. I wouldn't do anything for myself. And it was when I was working the most and making the least. And there was this point where I was like, I can't go any farther. I missed 2 months of rent. Like, if it goes any farther and they realize it, I'm going to not have a house. And so there was a point that I was like, I can't go any further. I'm working my ass off and I'm not getting the results. Like, this is weird. Like, I know what I'm doing. I was a marketing coach. And I was like, something's off. So I was like, okay, fuck it. I needed to make a change.
Yeah.
If you're having repeated plant patterns, you're the common denominator.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need to make a change. I got like a part-time job. I started working. I was like, I need to prioritize my pleasure and my joy, because what's the point if I hate what I'm doing? And so I got a part-time job. I started like working out again, going out with my friends, and then I felt safe and secure and happy, and I got a 6K client. And it wasn't like it fell in my lap. It was, I did a giveaway to do the coaching from my heart. I did it in a way of like, I'm going to do this for free. And it was joy and excitement.
It was out of that sensuality and pleasure, right? Like you can't bring in anything or attract it if you're spent, like emotionally drained. I was talking to someone about this too this morning, where she said, because I've always noticed that anytime I go back to pole and I start dancing and I'm in my body,
Yeah.
I tend to attract more opportunities into my life. And she was like, that's because you're feeling good about yourself and it's pleasure and it's play. And
Yeah.
because you're tapped into that life force, like sexual energy, it actually ends up bringing in more. But what's crazy is it actually ends up bringing up like a bunch of stuff that you need to work through, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like, I don't know if you've been through this, but I noticed that the more pleasure I feel, the more I'm stopping and I'm going, why aren't I allowing myself to feel this?
Yeah, there's a ceiling for as much pleasure we can also take in, or joy, or abundance. And I'm also having a recurring pattern of I'll hit a new high and then I'll go low. So I hit the highest client. She paid me the most. She actually got the most results. Did a testimonial video and everything. I have not, yeah. And then I went low. I didn't believe I could keep it up.
Yeah.
And like trying to catch yourself when you're in those patterns of like, are you self-sabotaging? Like, do you feel joy when you see a sunset and you're like, oh my God, this is so pretty. It feels so good. And then you're like, oh, like, I'm being too cheesy. Or, like if you're happy and laughing and then you like want to shut it down because you're laughing too hard, like notice those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the importance in noticing that is like, what is it bringing up for you and why?
Yeah.
Like, where in your life? That's what I'm an abnormally introspective human being. So anytime that happens, I'm like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Or who made me believe that? And how can I work through that and then allow myself to feel what I need to feel? Which is, I mean,
Yeah, it's work.
Yeah.
I still work on it today is like, yeah, mine that I'm working on is does life really, why do I get to have just a great life? Like, why do I get to have a business that I love and a partner that I love and all this sex and connection and happiness and joy and it be fun? Like, there's a part of me that I still need to work on, like, that it's fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, honestly, like 2022 was my biggest year and happy. I did have flow and purpose and love and passion and joy, and it did work. And then 2023 was the worst year.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I'm still trying to resolve this.
Yeah.
Something I'm working through.
So what is helping you work through it currently?
That's a good question. Worthiness and deserving and feeling into the happiness. Dude, that's a hard one. Like that
I know I
Worthiness.
hit people with deep questions.
That one's a hard one. Like, how am I
Yeah.
working through it? I'm trying to each good thing really, really hold in my body that I am worthy of it and I deserve it. And then also focus on service for me is like me being happy and me being well fed, well loved, well fucked,
Yeah.
and abundant in money allows me to give more,
Yeah.
allows me to be in my purpose work, allows me to connect and help other women and speak on stages and travel and grow as a coach. Whereas if I'm not, like 2022 hit me hard, 2023, I'm not now able to be in that flow and service like I was. Yeah.
That's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah. I think like it's the human experience in
Yeah.
at the same capacity, right? Because like
Yeah.
as human beings, we do have highs and we do have lows, and I think it's like being okay with like that ebb and flow of things.
Yeah.
Because if you're on a constant high all the time, you're bound to
Crash.
and when you crash, you're gonna crash hard. So recovering from it, and I think understanding like the okayness of it is what I'm working on. I'm like, all right, like, because I had the same thing where sort of like the opposite, where I was on a high last year. I was like the most successful I had been, like a couple pay raises, traveling, living my life, and then all of a sudden, just the
Yeah.
opposite happened, and I
Yeah.
literally sat there and I was like, I'm not religious, but like I believe in God and like I'm very spiritual. So I would sit there and be like, all right, what is this teaching me? And it like, and it just it humbled me so deeply. It made me go, do you know what? When I was on that high, did I really appreciate that high?
Yeah, appreciate it.
Or was I
Give.
really fucking cocky, going like, yeah, I'm I'm the best and this and that. I was probably to some extent. So when I hit that low, I was like, oh, I didn't appreciate the high.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to really be appreciative in the highs and the lows. Like that's what I'm realizing now is today.
Yeah.
Like I had a struggle February. Like February was a struggle month for me. And I have to be appreciative where I am today. Like, I'm so happy to live in California. I'm so happy about the fucking beautiful sunshine.
Yeah.
I'm so happy about the partner that I have. Whether or not it's exactly, because it's never going to be exact. You're never going to have the full wheel of life at 100%.
No.
There's always going to be something out of whack
Yeah.
because that's just how life is. It's never going to be 100%. So, appreciating the good every single day, even if you can't pay rent, you're hungry, what do you have? You're alive. Maybe it's health, maybe friends, a roof over your head. Like there's something. So focusing on that is where the abundance grows in other areas.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
About the connection, when you said like connecting without connecting, like having sex without connection, I don't believe you have to have love or even deep connection to have intimacy.
That's what I want to ask you about. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. You can do it for you. You can have pleasure. But you do it for you and yeah, make sure you're not doing it for somebody else or that you should be doing it.
Yeah.
There was one time I went to a play party and I felt like the guy that I brought, he was like being a hoe and he was like connecting with other people. So I felt like I should. And so that experience led me to being like, oh, I should. Yeah, I could. But I wasn't really doing it for me. And then I left feeling depleted.
I think that's kind of that's like the signal, right? Like if you're feeling depleted, that's not connection or intimacy in any way.
Or what you want.
Or what you want. And I'm wondering if like connection and intimacy and what you want, just like they're the same. It's just all in one, right? Like if you're not following what you want or your pleasure, your desire, then it's not necessarily intimacy, maybe? I don't know, my brain's
Everybody has different variations of intimacy. Intimacy could be eye gazing, looking at you, connecting, touching. For me, I realized that circumstance was not doing it for other people, not being in competition. And for me, I realized that aftercare is really important. If you don't know what aftercare is,
If you don't know that,
reach out to me. I'd love to help you, but it's like kind of filling your cup. Like if you have a big scene or like after sex, getting some aftercare, cuddling, even talking, connecting. What do you need? And getting those fulfilled. And that experience taught me what I needed. And to make sure to get those. And actually, the guy I'm seeing now, so long story short, I woke up in the hotel room and the guy left.
Oh.
And yeah. And I felt depleted and empty and bummed and sad and all these things. And I happened to be talking to the guy I'm seeing now. And I like called him and I went to his house and I got all filled up with love, connection, cuddling, intimacy, deep talks, love. And then we also had sex, great too. And it was very connected and intimate. And I've been seeing him ever since. And I just realized that he was that person for me.
Yeah.
Like,
he fills your cup up.
He fills my cup up. Yes.
I think that's huge. Like when you were talking, my brain also made like another random connection, but I feel like sex, like you said, it's energy. So it's an energy exchange.
Yes.
I think like the emphasis on exchange.
Yes.
And then that can go hand in hand with people pleasing. Oh God, don't even get me started. People pleasing, and then like all the trauma that like you have maybe been through, where you were put in situations where you were like, I need to do this because either you're scared, right? Because you don't want to elicit like a response from someone you don't want, or because I don't know, you're taught that you just need to give.
Yeah.
And that you need to be depleted and you have to like I don't know if it's just a woman. I mean, men have feelings too, right? They're
They do.
very, very sensitive. So it's almost like as much as they don't want to admit it, they are very sensitive beings. The emotional aftercare in any situation, I think, is something that like people still neglect, right? And sex just, I think, highlights all those things because you're sharing energy with another person and it's right in front of your face. So like,
Yeah.
if you're emotionally avoidant or you're emotionally unattached or you're emotionally unavailable, the person is going to mirror to you in your deepest, most vulnerable time of having sex what is going on with you. I think, right?
Yeah, it can.
Right.
I feel like I'm a spiritual slut, and so like I'm very safe with my energy,
No, it's good. Yeah.
but like and like I go to these parties and I love the energy, but like I usually have like one person I like to connect with over and over and like maybe a new one once in a while, but I'm like very
Picky.
in yeah, and like if I do hook up with a guy that maybe I don't like love or whatever, I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And I like take whatever I'm getting and I kind of keep a boundary of my heart and connection a little bit.
I like that.
It's like I'm getting this, I'm okay with this, and then I'm gonna get my aftercare needs met by my man. And
no, but that's good. I think that's good, but because you're cognizant of it, and we were talking about this earlier. Boundaries are very, very important, regardless. So I like that you said
yeah,
that because like
spiritual slut.
spiritual.
I know, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that, but I am like,
It's true. I
yeah.
was telling someone again this morning, like same girlfriend that I was talking to before you. I was telling her, I was like, I'm similar to you, sort of, but I'm very black and white. We're like, I either like someone and I'm willing to give my energy to them, or I don't. There's no gray for me.
I'm great.
I'm not.
My birthday party is 50 Shades of Purple. Like, I'm all the shades. I'm not black and white. I'm very like.
I think that's how, like, I'm trying to work on being more, okay, I don't have to cut people out and not give them my energy.
Yeah.
I can just choose how much.
Yeah.
And, like, where the boundary is.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
And that's how the relationship I have now that I'm very happy in started. Is he was this like, he doesn't really fit in a box and I don't know what this is, but I really like his company and we are growing and exploring and I'm happy with him and he fills my cup. So I just kept doing it, even though if I were trying to put him in a box, it wouldn't have fit. I would have had to cut him off.
Oh, but I like that. That's good. I need
Yeah.
that. I think I need
I would have cut him off a long time ago because he didn't fit in a box.
Yeah, and we were talking about that too. You're like, had I gone for my typical type, I never would have. You never would have found it. The last person I dated, not my typical type either. But we did for a long time. It was like 8 months. And any person before that, not same thing. It's always like not your type that ends up being the right person for you. I think You end up
Yeah.
looking for like a checklist, and it's
Mhm.
not gonna. That's why dating apps are terrible.
Especially physically.
Oh yeah, physically. If I had seen like half the men that I was in long-term relationships in, like which there's only been like 2.5, if they were on a dating app, I would have.
Same. I wouldn't have swiped on like any
Yeah.
of my relationships. I'm not, and they're not attractive.
Yeah.
It was their energy, their vibe, their demeanor. Like the guy I'm dating now, like his energy, his demeanor. He's like, my friends just met him last weekend, some of them, and they're like, oh yeah, he's way cuter in person. Like he's just like he's got a good demeanor. I love being around him. Like I am very sexually attracted to him. He is attractive.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes that's not captured in a fucking photo.
Yeah.
Or like when you're like, oh, he's not tall enough. X.
Mm-hmm.
Like
No.
when I opened up more to the vibe and energy and different types, like the guy before I dated was a dork. He was a cute, sexy nerd. He's a good looking guy, but he's like a nerd.
Yeah. Well, that was the last guy. He was a
Yeah.
good-looking dude, much younger than me, and
Oh.
I never would have. Like, I even
Yeah.
mentally was like, this is a bad idea. But then I got to know him, and he was like the most wise, sad person, and
Yeah.
I was like, what the heck?
New age, like the
Yeah.
young men, there's some good quality ones.
This one came in from the dark. I was like, what? I go,
Ooh.
you're how old? Actually, I didn't even know how old he was until, like, because I didn't want to know. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't want to know. I go, I know you're much younger than me, but I just was
You
like,
didn't want to know?
I was like, I don't know how much. And we didn't really talk about it. And I had mentioned a few times, like, yeah, I'm 32. And then it came up through our mutual friends that he was
Yeah.
around 25. And I
Okay.
went, oh. And actually, nothing changed for me at that point.
Because you already
Because
established
yeah,
a
I was
base.
already starting to kind of fall for him a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, I don't care. I'm like, you're like the exception, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah. What do you think the importance of connection is and how it shows us like how we need to relate to ourselves and like how we can better understand us?
Ooh. Ooh, okay, with sexuality and with sex especially, as I am able to take in more love and pleasure and connection,
Mm-hmm.
I can also do so in business, in relationships, in pleasure, joy. Like, as you go into the depth of emotions,
Mm-hmm.
you can feel those depth of emotion and happiness, joy, success as well. So like an example of that is that I host emotional release workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And so like sometimes people are afraid to feel the sadness, the joy, the shame, anger.
Mm-hmm.
As you feel more into those, even the negative sides more, it opens you up to feel more of the positive.
Yeah.
So same with sex. It's like the more you are connected to your sexuality, your sensuality, the more you can feel, the more you can feel alive and
Mm.
present and love and depth. And also, one other point is I've watched several women that I was like, I would hire this coach, but there's something off. Like, she doesn't seem like her authentic self. She feels like she's missing something.
Yeah.
And then one of them recently went through a breakup and then got into a different relationship that's more sexual and primal, and he's very masculine. And she completely changed. She's more authentic. She's more free. She's more captivating. You're more magnetic when you're tapped into that sensuality, that sexuality. And like you're more yourself and you're just like flow and like magnetic.
Oh, that's so true. And it even says something to like the partner that you have relationship, or even honestly, if you're not in a relationship, but whoever you're exchanging energy with and having sex with, if
Yeah.
they don't help you come alive and feel more like you, sprint.
Yeah.
In any capacity, right? Like then they drain you. It's
Yeah.
like you see these women who are and people like who are in relationships with the wrong person that
Hmm.
drains them and they can't be themselves. And either when they get out of it, all of a sudden they
Yeah.
have a glow up. But then when you're with the right person, I saw this too. Like when you're with the right person and you're filling each other up because sex is energy, it's an energetic exchange, you start attracting more into your life.
Yeah. And you are actually even better with them. Like you're more filled up and you're more energetic and you're more friendly
Yeah.
when you are in a relationship, and that is possible. I am in that now. And like there was a couple that they just recently broke up, and they're in our community, so we see them, and they were both friendlier and happier and lighter, and I was like, see,
Yeah.
if you turn that off with your partner, that's not a good sign.
No, it's because you can't show up as you. If you can't show up as you and be your authentic self, like people are gonna know. They're automatically gonna just feel like almost like a barrier.
Yes.
And you, like you said, right? You're just like, oh, something's off about this person. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like people would say that to me sometimes. They'd be like, you just seem really closed off, and like like there's something up
Yeah.
with you, and I had no idea. And then, not to say that this last person was a bad person, but just not the right person for me, probably energetically, because I didn't feel like I could be myself. Like there wasn't space held for me to be me. So I felt like I had to diminish a lot of parts of myself. The second I was out of it, all of a sudden people were like, "Whoa, what's happening?" And I'm a little bit more authentic and quirky and like just myself. Um, and I thought, for me personally, I thought it was because I was going to pull and I was emoting more and like letting out more emotions, like that emotional release. But then I also found that it wasn't just a romantic relationship. That was like the catalyst. It was the friendships that I had too. So I took a really close inventory on who's filling me up and who's draining me, and then who can I be myself around, who can I not be myself around.
Yeah.
And that kind of clued me into, okay. And then even so far as like some people, have you ever noticed you hang out with them and then like bad shit happens to you afterwards?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Their energy.
Yeah, just it's off. I think it's that same thing. It's they drain you of that sensuality and pleasure, and then all of a sudden all these weird things happen, and you're like, "Whoa, what's going on?" It's honestly, it's probably because of that what you said, right? You're not full anymore, and you're not in that
Open.
and open. You're not open.
Yeah. And people listening, sometimes it is your own beliefs and fears that you're not being yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Like sometimes you're just like, I don't know how they would react. We'll try. Ask them. Have a conversation. How would you feel if I was more friendly at parties? How would you feel if I went off dancing? And then if they're not going to feel good, do you really want to be a different person
No.
with them? And is that doing a disservice to yourself being a different person?
Yeah.
And challenge yourself to share more of you and be more you when you're out with them. Because I've heard partners, they're like, I don't know what they would be okay with. And it's like, well, figure it out.
Well, communication.
Communicate.
Yeah.
Communicate.
A lot of people don't communicate, and we were talking about this too earlier. Like, why don't you? It's good to speak up and say, "Hey, this is what I'm noticing and seeing," but it's also good to be like, "I've been learning that of like how to communicate more and ask more questions."
Ask more questions. Ask more questions. Ask more questions. And listen. Those are big things. I would say the reason why I have a sturdy, healthy, loving relationship is communication. And oh, this is funny, real quick. I put an insecurity off of bringing it up because I had fear around it for 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And I talked to him just this last weekend, and he nipped it in the butt in a matter of minutes. And I was just like, yeah, we make those things mean more, and then it takes up space in our brain, and like the resentment builds when often it's not exactly what we perceive. Talk, communicate. And I felt so dumb because I'm all about preaching communication, but that one little one, I was like, I'll just do it later. I'll just do it later. Like I was scared to touch it. And then it was so simple. He was like, Tia, I haven't done this. Sometimes I just say things, and yes, we can do this. Like it was just like, and I felt so insecure about this one little thing for like weeks.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, that's true.
Weeks.
That's so true. How many times? Because I'm thinking back to how many times
Yeah.
like, I'm like, oh, they probably wouldn't like it if I did this. I'm like, well, did I ask?
Yeah.
And did I say, how would you feel? No.
Yeah.
I've even started learning it now in the earlier stages of dating as I'm getting to know people.
Yes.
I'm like asking them more questions. My latest thing has been apparently encountering human beings already in relationships. I don't know how this is happening.
Yeah.
I no idea. Don't know what vibe I'm giving off. I don't know if I say mistress on my forehead. But no, all joking aside, I'm more direct with like what are your intentions, or if I'm confused, I'm like, "Hey, can I ask like what's the dynamic here? Like what are your intentions? Like what are you looking for?" That way it nips it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You're not wasting like weeks of your time going,
Mm-hmm.
"Does this person like me? What do they want?"
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. I'm practicing that too, so it's great.
It's uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
But I think you can get uncomfortable with it because like how am I gonna come across?
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm
so
practicing.
yeah.
Practicing it, and then, oh, you did it the first time,
Mhm.
and you're like, oh, it wasn't as bad. And then you do it again and again, and honestly, it does get easier.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm Sexy Biz Babe on all the things. Instagram, even TikTok, I'm not really on there. But podcasts, so please check out my podcast. We talk about sexuality, ENM, confidence, business, all the things. I have some great episodes coming up, and season 2 is coming out. So check it out. And yep, levelupwithtia.com. We'll link to any freebies, sign up for my VIP, and I have a really good free workshop to check out about breaking out of shame and having better sex.
Yay. All right. See you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you ever want to chat more about anything that this podcast is about, you know where to find me. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and good old TikTok. And be sure to stay tuned for my Tea Time with Sabby episodes. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube or whatever streaming platform you happen to be listening to this on, I encourage you to follow, like, subscribe, and rate this so that it pushes it out to whoever else might need it.